The SUV door creaked open, unleashing a cold rush that wrapped around me like a shroud of dread, reminding me of everything I might lose. As I stepped into the autumn drizzle, shadows twisted along the pavement, swirling with my doubts. My father emerged, catching the light from the service station. Was he a provider, or merely a man weighed down by expectations? I stole a glance back at Ava, blissfully sipping her snack-sized juice pouch. Innocence draped around her like a shield, while I felt a shiver crawl up my spine, an echo of unsaid words hanging heavy between us. Would I ever mend this silence? Or was this where my story of abandonment truly began? They promised they'd be right back, but I knew better. Night had draped its heavy cloak when the SUV rolled into the parking area. The sky loomed low, pregnant with the scent of rain and memories. The flickering overhead lights buzzed, magnifying the eerie quiet. This place felt forsaken, a mere blip on Maple Avenue, hidden behind wide stretches of nothingness. No other cars, no radio playing, just the engine clicking down and the soft rustle of Ava's juice pouch in the back seat. Deep inside, a voice whispered, the one we tend to push away, sparking to life the moment my father parked. "Get out for a second, Jordan," he said, eyes locked ahead, devoid of warmth. His voice was flat, like he was addressing a stranger. My mom remained silent, her gaze fixed on the rainfall-drenched world outside, arms tightly folded. Each reindeer, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a sickly glow across the store. Tension thickened the air, wrapping around me like an uncomfortable blanket. The orderly shelves loomed like silent witnesses, reflecting my fears back in the polished tile below. Each drop of water from my jacket punctuated the silence, each sound amplifying the chaos brewing in my mind. Outside, raindrops raced down the glass, mirroring my own racing heart. Was this just another moment of abandonment, or was something darker lurking just beyond my reach? I lingered near the candy aisle, pretending to browse while waiting for my parents. Each time a SUV rushed past outside, I darted to the window, disappointment crashing over me. It felt like an eternity. "Do you have someone picking you up?" the clerk asked, glancing at me with a skeptical yet caring expression. I nodded, forcing a smile. My parents would be here any moment. Had to be. He sighed, handing me a towel. "You want to wait in here? You look soaked." I nodded, settling onto a cold plastic bench near the ice cooler, my jacket dripping onto the tiles, clinging to my legs. An hour passed, then another. The smell of burnt coffee and lemon floor cleaner wrapped around me like a heavy fog. I sipped the hot cocoa he offered, but the warmth did little to ease my rising dread. I stared at the door, willing it to open. Eventually, the clerk made a quiet phone call. "Yeah, girl's about 13. Been here 3 hours, I heard him say. Doesn't seem like anyone's coming back." The note in my pocket remained unopened, an unopened door to whatever awaited me. My hands trembled, clutching the edge of the bench until the tips of my fingers went white. Around midnight, a police cruiser pulled up, its lights dimmed. A woman emerged, dressed in a uniform tan windbreaker, clipboard in hand. She knelt in front of me, her voice soft, yet steady. "Hey there, sweetheart. I'm Officer Danner. Can you tell me your name?" I hesitated, lips parting, but the words wouldn't come. "Jordan Tate," I finally managed. She jotted it down, eyes scanning my face like I was a delicate ghost. I felt a strange mix of release and dread as I followed her to the cruiser, leaving the clerk behind, who gave me a sad wave. Did I even wave back? The patrol SUV's warmth enveloped me like a false promise. The smell of vinyl and stale coffee filled the air. I sank into the back seat, held in place by a jacket that was heavy and useless against the cold that gnawed at my spirit. What awaited me beyond those doors? What had I really lost in the silence? The engine rumbled to life, shaking off the silence. Country tunes drifted through the speaker, hanging in the air like a ghost. That's when I unfolded the paper, the words sending a chill down my spine. 4 lines, twisted in Thomas Blake's meticulous handwriting. Some kids aren't meant to stay. You're better off gone. Just like that, they wiped me clean from their lives. But I had a secret. Paper doesn't lie. Receipts of truth linger long after emotions fade. I was alone in this cold, sterile room. Not freezing, not hostile. Just enough of a chill to remind me comfort was a distant memory. The secure booth felt suffocating, a retinal scanner blinking at me like a watchful eye. The system was waiting, but I already knew my answer. Override protocol. Strategic, tier level 9, I murmured, my voice slicing through the tension. The machine registered my words, a brief pause before the screen confirmed my entry. I was in. Seeing my name on that sterile font felt surreal. For years, I had perfected the art of leaving no trace, not digging back into the past, but here I was, forced to confront it. I rifled through the bare-bones file that appeared, just a name and a photo from West Point. Status: inactive. Reason: psychiatric instability. Candidate deemed unfit for extended service. My heart sank when I saw the signature that sealed my fate. Thomas Blake R. Rivers. I blinked, hoping to wake from this nightmare, but the reality clung tighter than a winter coat. As I leaned back, the weight of his choices pressed down on me. Thomas Blake hadn't merely left me to fend for myself. He'd set the system in motion to erase my existence entirely. Not just abandoned. He had deleted me. The monitor's glow caught my jawline, illuminating the storm brewing inside me. I fished a folded slip of paper from my coat, a handwritten log from earlier that week, names of those who might remember the system before it turned cold and automated. My heart raced as I realized the magnitude of what I was up against. The scent of rain hung in the air outside, promising change, cleansing the tightness of tension. But change wouldn't come easily. This was about more than family secrets. It was about unmasking the truth beneath layers of lies that had haunted me for 2 decades. Would I finally find the belonging I'd yearned for? Or was I forever destined to remain a ghost? One name stood out on my list, a small star beside it. Fulton Charles, a retired clerk with a memory sharper than a razor. Rumors had it he once called out a general for a phony citation and lived to tell the tale. I finally tracked him down in the Archives Annex, a hidden gem near Judiciary Square. You'd never guess it was there, tucked behind an unmarked door, the peeling paint whispering tales of neglect, and the scent of boiled coffee hanging thick. The hallway light flickered like it was in on some kind of secret. "Fulton?" I called out, my voice echoing softly off the grimy walls. "Depends who's asking," came a gruff reply from the other side. The tone suggested he hadn't talked to anyone in a while. Jordan Tate Rivers, looking into a 2004 deletion order. Strategic file path. You were listed on the chain of custody. There was a pause. Then the door creaked open. Fulton wasn't what I expected. He was a slender figure, skin like aging parchment, battling against gravity with every slight movement. "I remember that name," he said promptly, "but I remember the signature more." He gestured for me to step in, past shelves crammed with printed logs and backup microfiche that had survived multiple rounds of digital updates. We stopped at an old steel filing cabinet. His finger tapped the top drawer. Nothing here was digital. "Back then, if you needed someone gone," he said, "you had 2 things, a signature and silence." I waited, my pulse quickening as he leafed through yellowed logs. He pulled one out and laid it flat on the desk. Instantly, I recognized it. The same ops code as my deleted file. "I flagged the request," he said, his voice low. My mind raced. "Didn't make sense, young cadet." No psych flags prior, and the author overrode chain protocol, Thomas Blake Rivers. I finished, the name feeling like a stone dropped in my stomach. Fulton nodded, unblinking. Didn't realize the name meant anything to you. It did. He's your father, he muttered, the weight of the words hanging between us. Yeah. Some kids get drafted too early. Others, they get drafted wrong. I thanked him, but he offered me a cup of weak coffee. I declined. Back in my apartment, the soft glow of monitors illuminated the sparse space. Just a table, a stack of case folders, and the hum of strategic doctrine models looping like a haunting refrain. The air felt stale with ink and quiet resolve. I decided it was time for action, sending a back-channel ping to Latin Vega. But my mind wandered back to that day at the family cabin, the scent of smoke intertwined with laughter. Thomas Blake's hearty chuckle mixed with Ava Quinn's innocent giggles, that warmth contrasting the cold creeping into my heart. Why had everything changed? The wind outside seemed to tease the truth, a whisper of secrets buried beneath years of silence. Would I finally discover the belonging I craved, or was I fated to linger in the shadows? The rain pattered against the glass, a soft tapping that echoed my nerves. I found myself standing in my small, cluttered apartment, surrounded by memories I'd stashed away. I opened an old drawer labeled, "Personal, do not open." Just seeing it felt like a dare. Inside, piles of unopened letters lay stacked, each one a ghost of my past waiting to be released. The yellowed envelopes whispered tales of abandonment, letters from family, not to heal, but to shun. Hope you're doing well. Don't come back. I dragged a chair closer, the weight of their words pressing down like a lead blanket. My pulse raced as I read through a typed note from Elaine. "We don't have space for your kind of story. Please don't write again." I sat on the edge of the bed, the letters in my lap, heavy reminders of a childhood dulled by silence. For 2 decades they had turned their backs on me. I thought I was okay with the absence. It seemed survival was all that mattered. Yet, that day at the Defense Summit, my moment in the spotlight would change everything. The lights blazed down, the room filled with a polished crowd, all eyes on me in my crisp uniform. I could feel them assessing every detail, the lines etched on my face, the years of hardship cloaked in authority. But my thoughts strayed back to the cabin where laughter mingled with smoke. Thomas Blake's hearty chuckle, Ava Quinn's innocent giggles, how could they have faded into silence? I prepared for this moment, rehearsing my speech in my mind. But the words would reach beyond the walls of that hall. Somewhere down in Tennessee, in a living room dimly lit by a flickering TV screen, I was about to enter their lives again. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice steady, a haunting reminder of the boy they thought they'd forgotten. Would they finally see me? Would I find the belonging I craved, or remain a ghost lingering in their shadows? Every second stretched between anticipation and regret, each heartbeat echoing louder than the next. The autumn drizzle outside masked the truths that sought to emerge, the tenderness of familial bonds overshadowed by years of distance. I was ready to confront it all. Would they understand? Would I? Today, we dive into a realm of untold stories, where the whispers of abandonment collide with the quest for belonging. Can you feel that? The way silence lingers, heavy, almost suffocating. In a modest house 3 states south, a camera captures a moment, a rebellion of reality framed in crisp military uniform and gleaming rank. This is Jordan Tate, Brigadier General. But today, nothing feels ordinary. The live feed broadcasts across America, each pixel a glimpse into a family fragmented by distance. In that living room, the beige carpet bears witness to secrets. Elaine Rivers, poised at the edge of her floral love seat, clutches her hands tightly. She seems lost in a memory, of laughter perhaps, or echoes of a better past. And Thomas Blake, arms crossed, turns his back to the screen, his silence a painful riddle. Then there's Ava Quinn, legs curled beneath her, blinking slowly at the face plastered on the screen. The whispered question from a neighbor hangs in the air. "Isn't that your girl?" Have you ever felt the weight of a name spoken in hushed tones, meant to stay buried? Back on stage, the audience holds its breath. War isn't always declared, I say, my voice steady. Sometimes it's the quiet spaces between silence and judgment. The truth slithers into their hearts. Some of us weren't meant to shine in family portraits. In that instant, the crowd gasps, each face illuminated by shared recognition, while across the country, Elaine's lips tremble and Thomas Blake exits, unable to face what's been unaddressed for too long. Ava's eyes widen, her innocence shattered. What happens when your family becomes a stranger? Can we bridge the gaps of years lost to silence? I wonder, can they finally see the person I've become? The autumn drizzle taps at the window, a melancholic rhythm urging memories to seep through the cracks. Will they forgive? Will we find a way back? Each heartbeat quickens, echoing the questions that linger in the air, waiting for answers that may finally break the silence. Her fingers tightened around the throw pillow like it could pull her back to a time when everything hadn't shattered. Elaine finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. She wasn't meant to say anything at all, but then she just trailed off. The room hung in a painful stillness after the screen flickered to a different image. No one moved. Ava finally rose, her gaze glued to the blank screen. "We need to talk to her," she murmured, her voice a mix of wonder and fear. "Before this gets even worse." Then the phone started ringing. When I saw her name, a strange calm washed over me. No anger, just a plan forming in the back of my mind. The dim room lit up with the name Elaine Rivers, glowing cold against the darkness. No pictures, no sweet nicknames, just those two words that used to mean everything now triggering nothing but a gut instinct. I let it ring twice before I answered. Jordan Tate. Her voice felt like a fragile wisp, barely more than a breath. It carried an emptiness I hadn't touched in years. No warmth, just a surface bravado pretending to be strong, like glass trying to imitate steel. "You called." My tone stayed even. I thought maybe we could talk. Dead silence. Then I heard Ava's voice clattering in the background. "Ava Quinn and your father." She hesitated before continuing. "We think it's time to reconnect. It's been so long, and you—" Another pause lingered. "Well, you mean I looked visible?" I shot back. There was no argument, just another stretch of silence, thicker this time. I could hear faint murmurs, the clink of something being set down, maybe a coffee cup. And then a louder break from Ava. "It would look better for everyone." There it was, not pain, not longing, just optics. Standing by the window, one hand on the frame, the other pressed against the phone's speaker, I caught sight of the distant DC lights blinking like stars indifferent to my turmoil. My reflection stared back. Uniform, neatly pressed, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned tightly, even at rest. "I'll come," I finally said after a heartbeat. Elaine let out a sharp breath as if preparing for rejection. But instead, I responded. "I don't eat what I can't stomach." The phone line fell silent. Then, just like that, she said, "Dinner's at 7, Sunday," and hung up without waiting for my reply. I stood there, frozen, staring into the dimness before I finally turned to the shadow in the doorway. "You heard all of it," I told Vega. She stepped into the faint light, arms crossed, her face hard to read. Didn't have to. The tone said enough. She leaned against the desk, her voice steady. "They're not reaching out, Jordan Tate. They're reeling you in. There's a difference." I nodded, the truth pressing in around me. I wasn't being welcomed. I was just a player to be repositioned after 2 decades of being removed from the game entirely. "Dinner's the setup," I murmured. "The real conversation will be the silence after." Vega tilted her head. "So, what's your move?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I crossed the room and opened the bottom drawer of the metal cabinet I kept locked with a 3-digit combination I'd never shared with anyone. Inside lay a manila folder, its label faded yet still legible. Grant, family redacted. It was never really about them. Not by name. But patterns? Patterns were everything. The folder held old documents, copies of memos, flagged entries from access logs, printed email headers stretching from 2005 to 2019. Each piece was loosely tied to another family, another soldier, another instance of quiet erasure. A case study in systemic abandonment. I'd started collecting them after the third operator I trained vanished from the promotion list without a trace. The same story every time. Questionable mental health notes, early discharge stamps, families tagged as uninformed or absent. Names changed, but signatures didn't. Over the years, I'd added to it quietly, building a pattern map, a web of silence, a dossier no one had asked for until now. I slipped a fresh page into the folder. The glossy surface caught the light, a printed snapshot of me at the podium, polished yet hollow. As the autumn drizzle tapped rhythmically against the window, the weight of what I might uncover loomed large. Would this reconnect, or just deepen the isolation I felt? Time stood still, simmering in the air. The air was thick with tension as Jordan Tate stepped inside, the scent of lemon wax mingling with an edge of something sharper. Regret, perhaps. Each forced smile from her family echoed a discomfort that felt palpable, an unwelcome chorus underscoring this forced reunion. She caught sight of the stoic expression on her father, Thomas Blake, just as a faint creak echoed through the silent house. It was Ava Quinn, tiny and blissfully unaware, peeking in. Her innocence sliced through the tension like a knife. Did they even realize how close to the edge they were, laying bare family secrets that had festered far too long? Jordan felt it in her bones. She wasn't just here to catch up. She was on the brink of unearthing a family truth that threatened to spill out. What could this moment really mean for all of them? As Jordan faced the warmth of their artificial greeting, she noticed how staged everything felt. The overly polished table, the smiles wide enough to hide the awkwardness. Nothing living ever felt so orchestrated. Thomas nodded stiffly. "Welcome home." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken tension. "I didn't say I was home," she shot back, brushing past him like an arrow aimed for escape. She glanced at Ava, who sat perfectly poised at the table, uniform crisp. Who were these people sitting around her, and why did it feel like a trap? This was supposed to be family, but was it? For too long, Jordan had been a ghost in their lives, a name glossed over without consideration. The table was set for 4, forks arranged like accusations. Where was her name card? Where were the photographs of her to balance the walls of this curated memorial to Ava? Or was it more about keeping the past buried away? The autumn drizzle tapped rhythmically against the window, a reminder of every long-lost chance. Why did she feel so tangled in their silence, as if answers were lurking, just waiting for the right moment to emerge? The tension spiraled, and she knew this wasn't just a dinner, it was an unveiling, the first act of a play she never auditioned for. Would she find belonging or deepen her isolation? The weight of that question loomed larger as the evening unfolded. She looked up as I approached, a flicker of something, nervousness, pride, resentment, crossing her features like a shadow sliding over the moon. Then it vanished. "Glad you came," she offered, her voice too smooth. "I never said I wouldn't," I shot back. Dinner began. Conversation tiptoed around landmines like a tightrope act. Elaine asked about the weather in D.C., trying to keep things light. Ava chimed in about her recent tactical seminar, her enthusiasm a bright spot against the heavy backdrop. Thomas Blake. He focused on cutting his steak with excessive precision, as if silence could be sliced away like meat. The food was excellent, but flavorless, like every other moment in this room. Then the door swung open, and in walked an uninvited guest, a woman I barely recognized, flushed cheeks betraying either wine or effort. I just had to stop by. "I saw the broadcast," she laughed loudly, dropping a store-bought pie on the table like a kid at show and tell. So proud of both daughters in uniform. The room felt like it had forgotten how to breathe. Elaine's smile stretched so tight it threatened to snap. "Yes," she said through gritted teeth. "We're very fortunate." Thomas Blake froze mid-chew, like he had turned to stone. "And Ava?" She stared down at her plate, the peas becoming a maze she couldn't escape. I looked from the neighbor to the table, my stomach churning. "One of us earned her uniform," I said, each word clipped and precise. The other borrowed it. Elaine's fork hit her plate with a soft metallic clink, echoing through the room. Thomas Blake set down his glass, eyes narrowing. "That's not fair," he snapped. "No," I agreed, "it's precise." The neighbor mumbled something about traffic and decided it was time to leave. The door clicked shut behind her like the final note of a grim funeral hymn. For one brief moment, the silence felt heavier than the table itself. Then Thomas Blake spoke, his tone coated with regret. "We always hoped you'd come back better." I laughed once, a cold and brief sound. "I didn't come back," I said, locking eyes with him. "There's a difference." Elaine fiddled with her hands, a nervous twitch beneath the tablecloth. Ava sat there, wordless, caught between innocence and tension. Rising, I stood before dessert was even served. No one moved to stop me. As I passed Ava, I leaned in close and whispered, "Don't rehearse your next speech too much. The truth might just trip you." I could feel her shoulders stiffen underneath the weight of my words. What did any of this mean? Every breath dragged with unspoken truths, as thick as the autumn drizzle outside. Would we dig deep enough to find belonging, or would we remain prisoners in this cage of silence? The night was just beginning, and the tension in the air promised that no one would leave unchanged. She never turned to watch me leave, but I could feel her gaze digging into my back all the way to the door. The truth never dies. It just gets filed under wrong names behind doors no one dares open. Fort Allegra stood tall above ground, posing as a logistics hub. Rows of marked containers lined the yard. Uniformed personnel moved through the buzzing chaos like clockwork, drowning in paperwork. But beneath that polished exterior lay steel corridors humming with secrets. That was where I needed to go. The elevator wasn't going to let me ride down without a fight. No civilian IDs allowed. It required retinal scans, fancy biometric sequences, and two-person validation that I didn't have. I'd only made it down once before, back when orders ruled me, not suspicions. But tonight, it was just me. Vega met me 2 blocks from the perimeter. Her hair was pulled tight, and her eyes shined with an intensity I hadn't seen before. 30-second spoof window, she said, handing over a military-grade keycard that wasn't hers. Once you swipe, you're either in or arrested. Comforting, I muttered, feeling the weight of uncertainty settle in my stomach. When I stepped inside, the air chilled noticeably. The steel walls swallowed sound. My boots echoed like reminders of what I was leaving behind. I swiped the keycard at the first gate. The light blinked below. Level B Vega's workaround might just get me through. I moved swiftly, dodging checkpoints meant to alert security. Instead, they whispered static into the void. The room I sought was marked Archive 7G. No plaque, just an embossed seal flaking away. A lone clerk occupied the space, behind an outdated terminal that looked like it hadn't seen a software update in years. "Staff Sergeant Lenz?" I asked. He glanced up, hesitant, about to rise. "You're not on the manifest." "I'm not here officially," I said, flashing a blank clearance card, but you'll find the override directive under Protocol Echo Subfile Delta Rain." He hesitated, fingers danced over the keys, then frowned. "This was pulled last week, and then reversed." "I didn't delete it," I replied, tension building like the thick autumn rain outside, each drop echoing the weight I carried. What secrets lay buried in that archive? Would uncovering the past finally break the chains of isolation, or was I preparing myself for another heartbreak? As warmer air swirled with cold truths, I couldn't shake the feeling that this night would change everything. But why? What awaited me hidden behind those walls? "That's why I'm here." Jordan tapped away at the terminal, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The tension crackled in the air, thick as autumn mist. Just moments ago, the clerk muttered, "Be quick." Had she opened Pandora's box? Following Vega's careful breadcrumbs scattered across years of silence, a hidden operation log called Mercury 55207 unfurled before her. The mission was hers, every order, every fallback plan. But her name? Nowhere to be found. The commendation, meant for her, had been given to some junior officer she barely recognized. It stung. Then she found the memo. Subject, SS Rivers, deemed mentally unfit for command. Recommend reassignment or expulsion pending. Dua D. Rivers. That signature glowed ominously on the screen. The truth hit her hard. He hadn't just abandoned her at a service station. No, Thomas Blake had shadowed her into adulthood, slicing her out of her own victories with cold, bureaucratic precision. As she exhaled slowly, the weight of the date sunk in. 3 days after Operation Mercury wrapped up. 3 days after she returned from a war she fought to survive, with 26 lives on her conscience who would never know her name. Mattered. Backtrack. There had to be more. Vega's patch cracked open a tattered surveillance packet. The grainy footage flashed, a soldier stepping into the server core after midnight. Alone, the timestamp read 2007. She recognized the shoulders, the urgency. Thomas Blake Rivers. He keyed into the mainframe, inserted a token, and began a data dump. Nobody stopped him. Nobody asked why until now. Jordan squinted, returning to the log. She dared to type something she'd avoided. Gurntu S. Rivers status. Executed. The word consumed her, danced on the screen until it blurred. Anger swelled, fists clenched against the desk. Behind her, the door creaked. Lenz had returned, face pale. "Ma'am," he said, voice barely above a whisper. She didn't turn. Each moment stretched. The weight of unspoken truths hung between them, magnifying her isolation. Would facing the past finally make her whole? Or was she about to unleash something far darker than she anticipated? What secrets lay in those shadows? The room felt increasingly claustrophobic, suffocating. Time held its breath as two worlds, one of silence and another of chaos, began to collide. Just as Jordan Tate's breath hitched in her throat, she noticed the faint shimmer of panic in Thomas Blake's eyes. Outside, the autumn drizzle fell softly, each drop whispering secrets to the pavement. The flickering streetlights cast eerie shadows on the walls, amplifying the tension thick in the air. Was it just the storm brewing outside, or was something darker lurking within their shared past? In Ava Quinn's innocent gaze, uncertainty loomed like a ghost, gnawing at the fragile threads of connection. Could they bridge the chasm of their secrets before it engulfed them all? "You're not the first to look for these files." Thomas's voice trembled, breaking the silence. Jordan stood slowly, a knot tightening in her stomach. "Who?" she asked, her heart racing. "Someone tried to wipe them completely last week." His eyes were wide with fear. They didn't succeed, but whoever it was, they had top-level access. The tension hung heavy, like the scent of rain mixing with the musty air of the room. Real top, the kind that doesn't leave a signature. "Be careful," he added in a whisper. "This isn't just forgotten history. It's a trap someone closed long ago." Jordan felt every word weigh on her as the truth began to settle in. They used her ideas, her sacrifices, but they thought they could keep her quiet forever. The Doctrine Library at Langley East was more than just a file storage. This place was buried beneath layers of red tape and thick dust designed to suppress rather than remember. It required 4 levels of biometric clearance and an unspoken agreement not to poke around too much. The walls were built for silence, but that quiet screamed the loudest of all. As she stood beside the interface console, each glowing line of the Doctrine files scrolling across the glass felt like breadcrumbs leading her deeper into a labyrinth she didn't want to enter. Vega, her fierce companion, moved with a precision that felt almost military. "Ready to run the analysis?" she asked, eyes glued to the screen. Jordan nodded, her thoughts racing. They needed to feed their AI engine a curated sample of old field reports and debriefings. Moments ticked by in suspense. Then it beeped, the screen flashing with urgency. Match 94%, phrase cadence structure decision syntax. Was this the key to their tangled families? And if so, what dark truths lurked within those files, waiting to shatter their fragile balance? A dusty living room, light barely creeps through the half-shuttered window. The air carries the musty scent of old books, mixed with a faint whiff of pine. Jordan Tate sits cross-legged on the carpet, her fingers doodling in a worn-out notebook. The hushed voices of Thomas and their mom float through the walls, growing tenser. Suddenly, a plate crashes against the kitchen countertop, echoing like a gunshot in Jordan's chest. Is this where it all fell apart? She glances at a family portrait hanging crookedly on the wall, smiling faces caught in time. But why does it feel like they're galaxies away now? The wind murmurs secrets, and the chill of the autumn drizzle sneaks through the window, carrying a heavy weight of vulnerability. Kent's voice trembles, pulling her from her reverie. "You're not the first to look for these files." Her stomach tightens. Who? The answer emerges slowly, thick with tension. Someone tried to wipe them last week. The fear in his eyes is palpable. Whoever it was, they had top-level access. Each word sinks in as the reality of their world begins to unravel. What shadows lurked behind those closed doors? They thought they could bury the truth. The Doctrine Library at Langley East wasn't just a storage unit. It felt like a tomb, buried beneath mountains of red tape and dust. 4 biometric clearances stand between them and the secrets within, a chilling warning to anyone seeking answers. As Jordan stands beside the interface console, a labyrinth of Doctrine files scrolls before her. Each glowing line feels like a breadcrumb leading her into darkness. "Ready to run the analysis?" Vega asks. The urgency in her tone sends a thrill down Jordan's spine. With a firm nod, they dive into the digital fray. Moments tick by as silence swells between them. Finally, the screen beeps, flashing an alarming message. Match 94%. Was this the thread that would connect their tangled families? What dark truths were waiting, buried deep within those files, eager to shatter everything? As she scrolls through, the familiar signature lines jump out at Jordan. Almost too familiar. "This feels surgical," Vega whispers, eyes wide. Jordan's mind races. That's my model, my design. She had crafted it in Southeast Asia to reduce loss. But now, it bears Ava's name. A sick knot tightens in her gut. They've taken my life's work. The tension in the room thickens as more files flash before her eyes. Her ideas, her voice, neatly rebranded and handed over like currency. As she recalls the struggle after her surgery, recovering with an IV in her arm, rage simmers beneath her calm demeanor. "Was this authorized?" Vega asks, concern etched on her face. Jordan's jaw clenches. "No." She pauses, staring into the void of evidence left unchecked. But suspicions don't hold weight in tribunals. Evidence does. The weight of their shared secret hangs between them like smoke. "You know I suspected," Jordan confesses, her hands steady despite the chaos within. The system remembers, she thinks, as she uploads a time-stamped data packet to the ethics portal. Silent, yet screaming for recognition. "You're not planning to go public, are you?" Vega asks, eyes narrowing. "No," Jordan replies, her voice calm and measured. "I'm planning to go visible. They've taken my sacrifices, but I won't fade away." The dim light flickered, casting restless shadows on the cold concrete walls. The air felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Jordan Tate's heart pounded, a mix of fear and determination igniting within her. She glanced at Thomas Blake, his stoic mask cracking just a bit. Beneath their distant interactions, something crucial simmered. Ava Quinn sat nearby, unaware of the brewing tension, her innocent curiosity pressing for answers that seemed just out of reach. This moment hung like an unanswered question. Did they understand the weight of what was about to unfold? In a world constrained by secrets, Jordan found herself trapped in the doctrine vault, a ghostly space few knew of. It smelled of ozone and forgotten ambition, devoid of windows and time. The silence was deafening as Vega sat at a neural interface, fingers moving like a machine, tension radiating from her. "I ran the fourth batch through stoichiometric match," she said, her voice cutting through the stillness. "T4% overlap with your linguistic fingerprint." Jordan leaned closer, her breath catching. The screen glowed with classified documents, titles that hit like a punch. Rapid Containment Doctrine for Gray Zone Conflict, Eastern Asymmetry Reversal Model. These weren't just papers, they were her legacy. Yet, not a single title bore her name. "Are you sure?" Jordan's voice trembled. Vega never looked away. "They used your command phrasing patterns. That's not a coincidence. That's theft." A cold wave swept through Jordan as Vega expanded the metadata. The documents, published under Joint Strategy Task Force Office 3B, revealed a name that felt like a dagger, Lieutenant Colonel Ava Quinn Rivers. Why now? Why recycle her work instead of burying it? "Because you were effective and invisible," Vega replied too quickly. "The system likes when the two align." Jordan's mind raced. There was a flicker of something in Vega's eyes. Was it shame or recognition? "Oh, we all suspected," Vega admitted softly. No one dared say it. Driven by fury, Jordan moved to the center console, calling up a blank input log. This system wasn't made for declarations. It flagged anomalies, the whispers of truth hidden within shadows. Would this be her voice finally breaking through, or would it be silenced again, like a dream lost in the dark? As she uploaded her findings, the air thickened with unspoken resolve. This wasn't just about recognition. It was about reclaiming her story in a world that wished her invisible. And with that, the weight of their shared secret hung like smoke, ready to spark a fire that couldn't be contained. Jordan Tate stood in the kitchen, the sweet aroma of cinnamon and apple pie mixing awkwardly with the burnt remnants of yesterday's turkey. The clock above the stove ticked loudly, slicing through the heavy silence. Memories flickered like candlelight on a forgotten birthday cake, a reminder of days filled with laughter and warmth. She closed her eyes, recalling the feel of her mom's hands working dough, warm and nurturing, so different from the icy air that now blanketed her home. "What happened to us?" she murmured, the bitterness hanging on her tongue like the last sips of a cold cup of coffee. And in the midst of that autumn drizzle outside, her mind darted back to Thomas Blake, her father. Distant and conflicted, he bore the weight of responsibility as if it were a second skin. Yet, didn't he understand that closing himself off only built walls? With every word left unspoken, the chasm between them widened. What did he feel behind that stoic facade? Then there was Ava Quinn, curious and innocent, blissfully unaware of the chaos swirling around their family. She drifted through the silence, seeking connection, yet often feeling like an outsider in her own home. "Why can't we just be together?" Ava's voice echoed, a soft plea against the suffocating quiet. Jordan, trapped between her father's unyielding grip and her sister's innocence, yearned to understand the tangled web of their family dynamics. Maybe belonging comes with unraveling the truth, she thought, as a gust of wind rustled the leaves outside, whispering secrets she longed to hear. What if facing their issues could lead them all back home? Just maybe. They could find their way back to each other. As memories swirled around her like the sense of deflated hopes, Jordan took a deep breath. The past seemed to call her, daring her to confront the truth. Would she have the courage to unravel the threads of abandonment and isolation? Would they emerge whole again, or would pain cloud the path toward belonging? With determination simmering in her chest, she stepped towards the living room. "Let's talk," she muttered to the stillness. Could this be the moment they all needed? In that dimly lit room, tension hung like fog in the air. Jordan Tate's fingers trembled, a storm of fear and adrenaline swirling inside. She had just uncovered a file labeled Family Secrets. The low hum of machinery echoed the pounding of her heart. Outside, autumn drizzle rattled the window, mirroring her inner turmoil. With one click, the screen flickered to life, and her world tilted on its axis. The name on the screen sent shockwaves through her. Thomas Blake, her father, long seen as merely distant, was implicated in dark, familial secrets. What had she stumbled upon? The distance between them now felt like a vast chasm, and her quest for belonging twisted painfully with betrayal. She sat there, memories of warmth overshadowed by the bitter reality of her family. "What happened to us?" she whispered, tasting the bitter remnants of a cold coffee. Over in the corner, memories flared, her mom's hands kneading dough, rich with love and warmth. How had that vanished? As the wind rustled fallen leaves outside, Jordan thought of Thomas, the man carrying heavy burdens alone. Didn't he see that sealing himself away only pushed them further apart? Would he ever share what churned behind that stoic facade? In the quiet, her thoughts turned to Ava Quinn, her curious, innocent sister, drifting through the silence, desperately seeking connection amidst the chaos of their family. "Why can't we just be together?" Ava's voice floated in the air, a gentle plea crushing under the weight of their isolation. Jordan wrestled with her place between her father's authority and her sister's vulnerability. Maybe belonging comes with unraveling the truth. What if confronting their issues could bridge the gap between their hearts? As past hopes swirled like leaves in the wind, she drew a deep breath. The past beckoned her, daring her to face reality. Did she have the courage to untangle the threads of abandonment? What if they emerged whole, or would pain only cloud their path to belonging? With a newfound determination, she stepped toward the living room. "Let's talk," she whispered to the stillness. Could this be the moment they so desperately needed? Here, caught in a whirlwind, I had built the skeleton of something powerful long ago, buried beneath layers of protective triggers. Today, I'd manually activated something far beyond my control. I typed in the activation phrase. The cursor blinked as if urging me forward. "Echo, initiate verification," I commanded. The screen flickered. My heart raced. Irregularities lit up like warning signs on a thermal map. Hidden connections, with Ava Quinn Rivers woven in, exposing details I never wanted to see. Thomas Blake Rivers, my father's name, began to echo. His oversight approval had been overridden for internal affairs. This was it, the moment that illuminated all the shadows. "They'll trace this back," Vega murmured, glancing at me. "I hope they do," I replied, breathing steadily. The oversight monitor buzzed with new alerts, classified documents flashing on secure consoles. What once was hidden now demanded to be seen. Stepping out into the hallway beside Vega felt surreal. The unsettling energy crackled around us. By the time I returned home, the rain had thickened, pounding against glass like a heartbeat. I powered up the briefing console, sinking into the chair that had collected dust since last year. The phone buzzed. Ava Quinn's name illuminated the screen. Was this the moment we'd been waiting for? No pleasantries. Her voice sliced through like glass under pressure. Did you just burn the house down? I stared at the ceiling, trying to find the right words. No, I finally replied, keeping my tone calm. Just open the windows. It's what you do when wolves realize the fire isn't dying down. They stop growling and start folding into themselves. The barracks lounge was empty. Dim lights hummed softly, vending machines blinking in a lonely rhythm. It was the kind of place you'd hide out in during a storm, weather or otherwise. I arrived 5 minutes early, but Ava Quinn was already there. She sat curled up at the far end of the long couch, her uniform replaced by a slate-gray hoodie and jeans that looked too new, too forced. Civilian clothes had never suited her. It was like she was trying to play a part she didn't know lines for. Her hair was pulled back, but not with any intention. When her eyes met mine, I saw a weariness I didn't recognize. She didn't stand, didn't greet me, just nodded, uncertain whether I was there to finish her off or to forgive her. I took a seat across from her, arms resting on my knees. Silence hung between us, taut as a string pulled too tight. Finally, she shattered the quiet. They called it a procedural review, but I know what it is. I stayed silent, processing her words. My clearance is under audit. Promotion cycle is frozen. There's a formal reprimand. It'll follow me. Good, I said, not out of cruelty but truth. Ava Quinn flinched but didn't. As the warm scent of freshly baked cookies drifts through the sunlit kitchen, memories flicker in Jordan Tate's mind like a movie reel. A vibrant past where laughter danced off the walls, now dulled by the cold silence that wraps around him like a shroud. With every tick of the clock, expectations pull him deeper into the abyss of isolation. He can almost hear his mom, her voice a cocktail of hope and despair, recounting family stories, those vivid tales that bridged the gap to a time when belonging felt tangible. Yet now, it only tightens the chains of longing. How could something once so comforting now feel like chains that bind? Nestled in this emotional storm is Thomas Blake, a father caught in his own web of turmoil. The weight of family responsibilities weighs heavy on his shoulders, even as he grapples with the rift that's grown in their home. Can he really provide for his family while wrestling with his own unspoken fears? Each decision feels like a battle, blurring the lines between duty and despair. Amidst the chaos, Ava Quinn floats through life with innocent curiosity. Oblivious to the simmering tensions that surround her, she's just a girl trying to grasp connection in a fractured family. Does she sense the shadows lurking just below the surface? When she reaches for the warmth of those around her, is she prepared for the chilly truth that might greet her? Back in the stillness of the room, Jordan's thoughts whirl around his recent confrontation with feelings he'd buried deep. The moment hangs heavy in the air. He watched as his ideas were lifted, his name erased, and family members celebrated promotions gleaned from his hard work. Surviving seemed like mere endurance. Ava Quinn, his trusted confidant, wrestles with the weight of her own decisions. "I don't know if I can do that," she admits, eyes cast down. "Then don't," Jordan replies, the words sharp as glass. A flicker of surprise crosses her face. "Volunteer overseas. Go where no one knows your name, and learn to build something from yourself." Is that truly the answer? Can she escape the legacy that feels like shackles? Silence envelopes them, punctuated only by the soft hum of lights overhead. With trembling hands, she fills out her resignation form. No grand speeches, just the quiet strength of a soul shedding the burdens of expectation. Each tap echoes through the room as she reaches the signature line, the air heavy with unspoken hopes. The stillness stretches as she finally clicks, "Submit." Time seems to pause. Then, with an exhausted nod, she slips away into the night, leaving Jordan behind, surrounded by remnants of the past. Alone in his apartment, the crisp autumn air mingles with the scent of rain seeping in. In his mailbox, he discovers an unexpected package, a soft, wrapped bundle without a return label. Curiosity piqued, he returns to the living room, peeling back the paper to reveal his old denim jacket, spotless and neatly folded. Memories flood in. This was the jacket he wore the night they left him at the service station. No note, just a relic of what once was. For the first time in ages, it feels as though something has been returned rather than taken. As he traces the worn seam of the collar, a sense of peace washes over him. He's not just reclaiming a piece of fabric, he's reclaiming a piece of himself in a world where everything seemed lost. In that moment of reflection, he realizes he doesn't need to share strategies or plans. What truly matters is that he finally has a voice, his own story to tell. The conference hall at the DC Defense Ethics Summit radiated a polished seriousness. Spotlights bounced off brushed chrome podiums and navy drapes, each seal woven with golden thread. An array of brass badges sparkled in their seats. Silent sentinels in a room thick with expectation. Cameras swept across the crowd, capturing every fleeting expression. Yet I stood defiant, anchored at the center of the stage, flanked by 2 digital screens. The moderator introduced me with a casual wave, but I felt the weight of their gazes. "Good morning," I said, my voice steady, pace deliberate. "Today's topic is intelligence integrity, how we build doctrine, and what happens when we forget who crafted it." A few heads lifted from their screens, curiosity piqued. "We discuss systems," I continued, "but systems don't write strategies. People do, and people can vanish, whether on purpose or simply forgotten." As I turned, the first slide illuminated behind me, a mission doctrine titled Hostile Decompression in Asymmetric Zones. My hand clicked to the next slide, Proxy Collapse and Contingency Shaping. Same author, same structure. Then a third appeared, Mercury Aftermath Analysis, redacted Protocol Tier B. No author listed. Something twisted inside me. I recognized that voice nestled beneath the redaction. "These," I began, gesturing slightly, "are seen as foundational texts attributed to collective authorship." But the final slide revealed a different truth. Linguistic overlays lit up, revealing my syntax, my fingerprints hidden in the words. "Styometric analysis," I declared, "shows otherwise." A ripple moved through the audience, a quiet shift. I spotted Ava Quinn in row 5, partially cloaked in shadow. Her arms crossed tightly, her eyes glued to the screen, tension radiating from her clenched jaw. General Kessler leaned forward, voice steady but intense. "Who's the origin point?" I didn't smile. I didn't need to. "I am," I replied plainly. Just then the lights dimmed, silence settled, clinging to the air like autumn drizzle. A sudden crash jolted from backstage, a thunderous split that shattered the stillness. What had just been unveiled? Was it chaos or a revelation? In that electric moment of pause, I felt my heart race. What truth was about to erupt? As the echoes faded, a voice murmured behind me, breaking the tension. "Jordan, are you sure?" At that moment, uncertainty seeped into my bones, mingling with the anticipation in the room. Would this lead to connection or further isolation? The stakes felt impossibly high. The whispers of what might come next lingered in the air, suspended between reality and the uncharted path ahead. Beneath the flickering light of the fading summer days, The air in Jordan Tate's childhood home is thick with the fragrances of old books and dust. Laughter echoes from a distant room, a hollow melody that contrasts sharply with the weight of silence that envelops him. Sunlight pours through cracked window panes, casting gentle shadows over faded family photos that seem to whisper secrets long forgotten. The haunting question lingers. Why couldn't they see? Why didn't they hear the aching silence that lay between the laughter? Jordan's heart races as he grapples with the suffocating isolation settling around him. He yearns for a voice. Any voice that could shatter the uneasy quiet and bring him closer to understanding his tumultuous family dynamics. Memories flash before him, the smiles, the love, but also the gaps, the utter loneliness he often felt. Was anyone really there? As thoughts swirl, we turn to Thomas Blake, a father consumed by his own internal struggles. He is driven by a need to provide, yet the shadows of his authoritarian demeanor cast fear over the household. Can he overcome his emotional conflict? Will Jordan ever break through the wall Thomas has built between them? Then there's Ava Quinn, the innocent younger sibling, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Her curiosity drives her to seek connection, to understand the unspoken tension swirling around their home. How can she possibly know the lengths people go to hide their true feelings? Suddenly, an autumn drizzle begins to patter against the window, echoing the rising tension in the air. Jordan's desire for belonging fights against the isolation that clings to him like a second skin. The laughter fades, replaced by memories of his father's silence and the questions that linger in the corners of his mind, unanswered. Will he find the connection he craves? As the rain intensifies, so does the urgency to uncover the truth about himself and his family. Can he shatter the cycles of emotional abandonment? Will Thomas recognize Jordan's struggle and confront his own? In this web of family dynamics, amidst the shadows and light, the quest for understanding grows. With every heartbeat, it becomes clear. The narrative isn't just about survival. It's about reaching across the divides that threaten to keep them apart. Can they reclaim their bond, or will the silence consume them? The road ahead is fraught with tension, but the hope for healing glimmers like light through the rain-soaked darkness. In this story, what happens next could change everything. The air was thick with tension, and in that moment, everything hung in the balance. Jordan Tate stood at the center, gripping the embossed folder like it contained the secrets of the universe. Outside, the autumn drizzle drummed softly against the window, mirroring the brewing storm inside him. Can we really face the truths we've all avoided? The thought lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. Across the room, Thomas Blake's gaze cut through the landscape of emotions like a knife. He was a father, caught in the crossfire of duty and emotional turmoil, a man driven to provide, yet shackled by his own unresolved issues. And then there was Ava Quinn, blissfully unaware of the chaos swirling just beneath the surface. With wide eyes and a heart full of curiosity, she sought connection, trying to understand the tightrope of silence that blanketed their home. How could she know the lengths to which they would go to conceal their true feelings? As the drizzle intensified, so did Jordan's quest for belonging, a battle against the emotional isolation that had wrapped around him like a second skin. The laughter that once filled their home faded into chilling echoes, replaced by haunting memories of Thomas's silence and the unanswered questions that loomed large. Would Jordan ever break through the fortress his father had built? Could Thomas recognize the isolation eating away at his son? The urgency for discovery crackled in the air, each moment a fragile thread leading them to the brink of revelation. Would they find the strength to reclaim their bond? Or would the silence tear them apart forever? With every heartbeat, hope flickered through the storm, shining like a beacon of light in the rain-soaked darkness. And then came the moment when everything changed. Just as the session concluded, with hands raised in unanimous agreement, The gravity of it all hung like a heavy fog. The smell of fresh ink filled the room as Kessler pressed the folder toward me, his voice steady. We don't name things lightly, but today we do both. Behind me, I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. I turned, and there stood Ava, her blazer oversized and her hair tousled as if she'd stumbled in from another world. She held out a manila folder, one that tugged at my heartstrings. I opened it, and there it was, the original strategy draft from years ago, my thoughts scrawled in the margins, one phrase underlined obsessively. Never assume terrain stays still. Ava didn't say a word, but her eyes were wells filled with tears that threatened to spill over. In this electric moment, everything was at stake. A path forward, a chance for connection, a confrontation with the past. Would they rise from the ruins of misunderstanding, or would they remain forever ensnared in shadows? The answer lingered just out of reach. The weight of the moment pressed down like a storm brewing just out of sight. Jordan Tate's heart raced in that sterile room, each breath thick with unspoken words. Images of family flashed in their mind, Thomas Blake's stern gaze, Ava Quinn's innocent smile, each a link in a chain they longed to break. Would anyone ever dare to confront the truth? The tension hung heavy in the air, each second stretching into eternity. A sudden creak pierced the silence as a door opened. A figure emerged, silhouetted in the harsh light, casting a long shadow across the floor. The question echoed, who will confront the truth first? Jordan's mouth pressed into a line, trapped between pride and shame. They nodded once. Ava, wearing her oversized blazer, hair tousled as if she'd stumbled in from another world, held out a manila folder, hands trembling. Inside, the original strategy draft, scrawled with their thoughts, one phrase underlined obsessively. Never assume terrain stays still. Ava's eyes welled with tears, longing for connection. In that electric moment, everything was at stake, a path forward or another plunge into darkness. Would Jordan find the courage to seek answers? Would Thomas recognize the isolation gnawing at his child's heart? The room was a mix of cold indifference and desperate hope. Ava Quinn. Quinn sat centered at the table, posture erect yet vulnerable, fully aware of the consequences. The military review board took their places, each member a sentinel of unyielding judgment. Ava Quinn spoke. I benefited from a silence I didn't earn. Her voice, unwavering, sliced through the tension. Awarded positions I didn't fully deserve. For every echo of her words, the walls seemed to close in tighter. I didn't falsify records, but I didn't correct them either. I let the wrong version of events stand because it elevated me. She paused, allowing the weight of her confession to settle in the room. The board deliberated in under 10 minutes. Effective immediately. Lieutenant Colonel Ava Quinn Rivers is placed on a 5-year promotion hold. As the gravity of their decisions hung in the air, Jordan felt an ember of hope flickering anew. Would their family break the cycle of silence? The answer lingered just out of reach, shimmering like the distant storm, both beautiful and terrifying. The air crackled with tension, every soul in the room caught between fear and hope. The silence hung thick, weighed down by the unsaid. Jordan's heart raced as Ava's gaze locked onto hers, confusion mixing with a desperate yearning. The flickering fluorescent lights hummed overhead, amplifying the electric vibe in the space. Out of nowhere, a loud crash reverberated from the hallway. Was it the end of their silence or the kickoff of a new conflict? In that moment, uncertainty morphed into something almost tangible, leaving Jordan teetering on the edge of a choice, the type that could redefine everything. Public censure loomed, ready to stamp itself alongside Ava Quinn's name. No one applauded or even acknowledged the gravity of the moment. As she rose to leave, she turned, finally locking eyes with Jordan, a moment both unsettling and revealing. Her expression was a mix of vulnerability and resolve. "Not forgiveness," she whispered, "but maybe understanding." Jordan held on to that gaze, sensing a flicker of hope ignite in the dismal air. After the board's decision hung like a heavy fog, Jordan returned to a cold office. The light on her desk blinked insistently. Taped to her monitor was a faded sticky note, warped at the edges. The message was clear. "You never needed my seat at the table. You built a better one." No signature, no apologies, just acceptance. This was surrender without fanfare. Outside, the creak of the porch echoed the whispers of Jordan's childhood, a bittersweet sound like a breath caught mid-gasp. The swing swayed softly, chains rusted from time. The lingering scent of wood smoke and pine held memories of a warm fire now cold. With a manila folder in hand, crisp and filled with finality, she stepped inside. The familiar hum of the house welcomed her, and there stood Thomas Blake, older and hardened, like a soldier fresh from battle. His eyes, rigid and calculating, spoke volumes without saying a word. She didn't expect him to, nor did she need him to. The house was unchanged, just the incessant ticking of the wall clock and the stale air that spoke of unacknowledged chaos. A glimpse of Elaine in the kitchen caught her eye, frozen mid-reach for a cup, as if time itself had ceased in that instant. What would they say? What would be left unspoken as they confronted the truth together? Her shoulders quivered slightly, revealing layers of tension and longing. "Ava Quinn's not here," Thomas Blake said quietly, breaking the silence that hung like a heavy blanket. It was clear. "I didn't come for her." I placed the manila folder on the dining table, a simple act, no theatrics. Inside were two crucial documents. My birth certificate, marking my officially recognized existence, alongside my transfer order from West Point to classified operations. Years had slipped away in reconstructing this paper trail, years to claim what was rightfully mine. "You don't need to accept me," I said, my voice steady as a rock. "Just stop pretending I never existed." Elaine stepped forward, her movements deliberate and slow. She looked older, her face a canvas of both time and the weight of unspoken words. Her gaze drilled into mine, seeking understanding yet fraught with uncertainty. Thomas Blake exhaled, a sound devoid of breath, almost a lament. "We were wrong," he stated plainly, the closest thing to an apology I'd ever hear. Strangely, it was enough. Elaine reached out, not for the folder, not for herself, but for my sleeve. Her fingers brushed against me, a fleeting touch I could have easily shrugged off. Instead, I let it linger. Not for comfort, not for closure. Just for recognition. "I'm not staying," I said after a pause. Thomas Blake nodded, understanding without words. I turned, heading toward the hallway. Each step resonated like I was crossing a fault line, one that had already split years ago. Then I saw it, a photo hung on the wall, a summer barbecue captured from a lifetime ago. Thomas Blake grasping tongs, Elaine with a lemonade glass, Ava Quinn mid-laugh, and there I was, not cropped out, not faded. I wasn't just a memory. I was framed like I'd always been there. They hadn't changed the house, but that told me everything had shifted. I didn't linger. I registered the scene, allowing it to settle. Outside, the autumn sun hit differently. Not warmer, just brighter. I didn't need flames to declare my return. The light itself was enough. On my birthday, a cake showed up with 3 words in blue icing: General.Sister.Strategist. The training center at Fort Algra buzzed with that electric focus only silence could sharpen. Cadets filed in, their fresh uniforms crisp, boots polished to a shine, and notebooks untouched. I could see that blend of fear and ambition in their eyes, the same armor I once wore. Standing at the front, chalk dust on my fingers, I faced the screen displaying today's lesson. asymmetric response tactics in gray zones. But the slides could wait. Some battles leave no map, only scars. As I began, a hand shot up, Cadet Murphy, just shy of 20, still figuring out his jawline. "Ma'am, what's the hardest part of war?" I let silence hang like thick fog before replying. "Surviving." His pencil hovered mid-air, uncertainty etched into his brow. The air felt heavy, charged. The rest of the lesson unfolded in sharp questions and tactical diagrams, one case study from the Balkans striking closer than most. When I dismissed them, a few cadets lingered. One young woman, Cadet Park, approached me, her notebook brimming with highlights. "Do you think legacy matters?" I smiled softly. "Legacy isn't about who remembers your name, it's who uses your work as if it's theirs, and then does it better." She nodded, a flicker of understanding lighting her eyes, and walked away, her boots echoing down the corridor. Back in D.C., my apartment was unsettlingly quiet. The sunlight sliced through the window, casting clean triangles on the floor. My phone buzzed. "Ava Quinn still listening?" I chose silence, letting the question drift away into the void. On the kitchen counter rested a small box, unmarked, just a handwritten note. "Open today." Inside, a humble cake awaited me. White frosting, blue piping, slightly lopsided. 3 words in gentle cursive: General, Sister, Strategist. No signature, no need for one. As the lesson progressed, a sudden chaos broke through the meditative quiet. The fire alarm rang out, echoing through the sterile halls. Cadets scrambled, and the tension twisted into frantic disarray. Amidst the noise, one voice rose above the clatter, familiar and warm. My heart raced. Could it be? I turned, my chalk-stained hands trembling. The urgency in that voice shattered my focus. Who stood there amidst the chaos, an unexpected reunion that melted the icy solitude of the years past? Time hung suspended in the air, revealing layers of truth that lay buried beneath the weight of firefighting gear and military facades. There she was, Ava Quinn, part of my life I thought was lost. Years of emotional isolation crumbled away in that moment. "What are you doing here?" I gasped, caught between disbelief and the flood of memories. She stepped closer, eyes wide with innocence, unaware of the familial tensions that had kept us apart. "I wanted to find you," she whispered, her voice shaky yet brave. In one heartbeat, everything shifted. 1,000 unspoken words filled the space between us, a desire for connection, belonging. The chaos receded, but my heart pounded louder than the alarm. Through tears of joy, I whispered, "You found me." In that moment, the distance of years melted away, leaving only the warmth of sisterhood, reclaiming what we both needed most. Jordan Tate sat alone at the kitchen table, the same one she'd built with her own hands. Evening light spilled across the worn wood, a gentle warmth wrapping around her like an embrace from the past. She cut a slice of cake, the sweetness reminding her of that time years ago when she'd sat by a service station window, hands trembling, drenched in autumn drizzle. Today, the cake tasted different, filled with a sense of belonging. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, she grabbed a new photo, placing it on the shelf with shaking hands. It captured a moment of joy, her and her students, their mismatched uniforms and crooked smiles. For the first time, she didn't feel overshadowed. She felt seen. And finally, at home. The battle she never asked for ended not with a bang, but with recognition. Those who once silenced her name now bore the weight of undeniable truth. Justice didn't come with fanfare. It arrived quietly, through determination and scars that told their own stories. What happens when bravery meets injustice? The answer echoes. No wall of lies can hold against the tide of truth. In this journey, every shattered silence is a step toward healing, and in that stillness, she found the courage to stand tall, embracing the messy beauty of family, connection, and belonging. Could you feel that shift? When the weight of years melted away, revealing the bond that had always been there. Imagine what it's like to reclaim the love you thought lost forever. What would you do? Would you reach out, speak the words left unsaid? As memories flooded back, she wondered, could the warmth of sisterhood bring them together once more? That flicker of understanding sparked hope for a new beginning, where vulnerability stitched the fabric of their lives. So, if this story resonated, what do you think? Did you see your own struggles reflected back, or do you feel a desire for connection like Jordan? Share your thoughts below. It's time for us to find our voice, together.